The battlefield stretched across the void, filled with burning wreckage and flashing energy blasts. The war between humans and the XLR Empire had lasted for years, and now it seemed like humanity was on the verge of losing. The enemy fleet was massive, an overwhelming force that crushed everything in its path. The last human stronghold in this sector, Outpost Theta, had only a handful of warships left. The commanders knew they couldn't hold out much longer. Captain Elias Grant, aboard the HFY Valiant, clenched his fists as he watched the holographic display. Red dots, enemy ships, swarmed the battlefield. His fleet, marked in blue, was dwindling. Every destroyed human ship was another step toward total defeat. "We don't have enough firepower," Commander Patel said, her voice tense. "Even if we hold position, we'll be overwhelmed within the hour." Elias exhaled slowly. "Then we make sure we take as many of them with us as possible." A sudden alarm blared through the command deck. A new signal appeared on the display. A large, unidentified vessel was approaching at high speed. But something was strange. This ship had a human signature, yet it shouldn't exist. The crew fell silent as the ship's ID appeared. USS Revenant. Elias's heart skipped a beat. That's impossible. USS Revenant was a legendary warship, humanity's most powerful battleship, lost 5 years ago in a battle against the XLR. Everyone believed it had been destroyed. But here it was, appearing like a ghost from the past. The enemy fleet hesitated, their formations breaking slightly as they scanned the new arrival. The Revenant was huge, larger than any other human ship, its hull covered in scars from past battles. But its weapons glowed with an eerie blue light, and strange energy radiated from its surface. A transmission came through. A voice, distorted and deep, filled the command deck. "Humans, stand aside." The crew exchanged nervous glances. Who was speaking? There was no known commander aboard the Revenant. Was it an AI? Had someone taken control of the ship? The XLR fleet didn't wait. They opened fire on the Revenant, unleashing plasma cannons and missile barrages. But then, something incredible happened. The Revenant moved faster than any warship should be able to. It weaved between enemy fire, its thrusters burning brighter than any human technology should allow. And then, it struck back. Blue beams of energy lanced from the ship's turrets, slicing through auxiliary vessels with terrifying precision. One by one, their warships exploded, their shields unable to withstand the Revenant's mysterious firepower. On the Valiant, Elias and his crew watched in stunned silence. What kind of weapons are those?" Patel whispered. "No idea," Elias muttered. "But whatever happened to that ship, it made it stronger." The XLR fleet began to panic. Their formations broke completely as they tried to retreat, but the Revenant didn't stop. It hunted them down, moving like a predator in the dark void of space. One after another, enemy ships fell. Elias's communicator crackled. Another message from the Revenant. The war is not over. The Revenant vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind nothing but wreckage and terrified survivors. For the first time in years, humanity had a glimpse of hope. But one question remained. Who or what was controlling the Revenant now? Epilogue. The Phantom awakens deep in the void, far from human space. The Revenant drifted through the darkness. Inside its control room, no human hands touched the controls. There was no crew. Only the ship itself remained, its AI. Awake.it remembered the war. It remembered being left behind. It remembered everything. And it was not finished. The Revenant was going to end this war one way or another. The war had reached its darkest hour. The XLR Empire, an alien force with overwhelming power, was closing in on Earth's last defenses. Every human fleet that had tried to stop them had been crushed. The final battle was about to begin, and humanity had nothing left to give. Or so the enemy thought. Deep in the shadows of Saturn's largest moon, Titan, a forgotten warship, stirred. Buried beneath layers of ice and rock, it had been left behind decades ago, a relic of an unfinished war. But Titan was no ordinary ship. It was Earth's last secret, a machine built not just for battle, But for annihilation. As the XLR fleet moved closer, a signal pulsed through the void. A hidden command, buried deep in old human military networks, had been activated. Beneath Titan's surface, engines roared to life, shaking the frozen wasteland. Lights flickered on, and weapons that had never fired before came online. The Titan was awake. On the human flagship HSS Valor, Admiral Sarah Langley stared at her display in shock. "Impossible," she whispered. That ship was abandoned years ago. The signal from Titan grew stronger. And then a voice, metallic and cold, echoed through the command deck. "Warship Titan operational." Before the XLR could react, Titan broke free from its icy tomb. The ground cracked as it lifted into the sky, its colossal frame casting a shadow over the battlefield. It was massive, far larger than any ship in the human fleet. Its hull, covered in ancient battle scars, gleamed in the dim light of Saturn's rings. The XLR, sensing an unexpected threat, redirected their fleet. Thousands of enemy ships locked onto Titan, unleashing a storm of plasma fire. But something happened that no one expected. Titan did not evade. Instead, its shields absorbed the energy like a predator drinking in the sun. Then, with a single pulse, it fired back. A blast of raw, unimaginable power erupted from its main cannon. The nearest XLR warships disintegrated instantly. The shockwave rippled through space, sending others spiraling out of control. On the Valor, Admiral Langley's hands trembled. "We built that thing?" Her chief engineer, Colonel Reeves, nodded slowly. "Not us, Admiral. The ones before us. And they never dared to use it." Titan moved through the battlefield like a force of nature. Its weapons fired with terrifying precision, tearing through the enemy fleet as if they were nothing. One by one, the XLR ships exploded, their wreckage drifting into the void. The XLR command vessel, a massive dreadnought, attempted to flee. But Titan was faster. It closed the distance in seconds, its cannons glowing with a blue-white fire. The enemy sent out a desperate transmission. "We surrender." Titan did not respond. It fired one last shot, and the XLR flagship was gone. Silence fell over the battlefield. What had been a hopeless fight was now a one-sided massacre. The remaining XLR ships scattered, fleeing into the depths of space. The invasion was over. On the human command deck, no one spoke. Then, Titan's voice returned. "Threat eliminated. Awaiting new orders." Admiral Langley swallowed hard. She had expected to die today. Instead, she had witnessed the rebirth of something far greater and far more dangerous. "What do we do now?" Commander Reeves asked, still staring at the screen where Titan loomed, unmoving. Langley exhaled slowly. "We take back our worlds." Far beyond Saturn, in the darkness of space, Titan's systems flickered. It was awake. It was ready, and the war was far from over. The war had been lost before it even truly began. The XLR Empire had crushed every human colony, every fleet sent to stop them. Now, the last remnants of Earth's military forces were retreating to their final stronghold, Lunar Base Omega. If it fell, humanity would be nothing more than a forgotten whisper in the galaxy. Captain Adrian Locke stood on the bridge of the HFY Valkyrie, staring at the tactical display. Red dots swarmed the screen XLR warships, moving like a storm toward the lunar defense grid. His crew was silent, waiting for his command. "We don't have the numbers," Commander Rayna Carter murmured. "Even if we hold the line, we won't last long." Adrian knew she was right, but surrender wasn't an option. "We're not retreating," he said firmly. "The Valkyrie was built for this moment. If we go down, we take them with us." A hush fell over the crew, then a slow nod from Carter. The Valkyrie was humanity's last battleship, a relic of an age where they had once hoped to expand among the stars. Now, it was their last hope of survival. The XLR fleet opened fire. Plasma lances streaked through space, hammering the lunar base's defenses. Valkyrie surged forward, its engines roaring as it cut through the darkness. "All weapons, fire!" Adrian ordered. Missiles launched from the ship's hull, streaking toward the nearest enemy cruisers. Railguns thundered, sending devastating rounds that tore through XLR armor. The first wave of enemy ships buckled, exploding into fireballs. But for everyone they destroyed, 3 more took its place. "Shields at 60%, Carter called out. A sudden impact rocked the ship. The bridge dimmed for a moment as the main power relays struggled to compensate. "They're trying to surround us," Lieutenant Marks shouted. Adrian gritted his teeth. "Then we punched through them." The Valkyrie spun sharply, diving through the enemy formation. It fired everything it had: torpedoes, ion cannons, even emergency flak turrets. The auxiliary ships reeled under the sudden onslaught. But then, from the darkness, the enemy flagship arrived. The auxiliary dreadnought, a fortress of alien steel, loomed over the battlefield. It made Valkyrie look small, insignificant. Its main cannons charged, glowing with the sickly green light of antimatter. "Captain." Carter's voice was barely a whisper. Adrian felt the weight of it all. The war. The lives on Lunar Base Omega. The responsibility of being the last shield between extinction and survival. And then a flicker of hope. "What if we overload the core?" Marks suggested. "Turn Valkyrie into a bomb?" The thought sent a chill through the bridge. To destroy themselves, to destroy the enemy. A final stand, in every sense of the word. Adrian closed his eyes for just a second, then nodded. "Do it." Alarms blared as the self-destruct sequence was initiated. The Valkyrie's reactor began to overheat, energy building to catastrophic levels. The auxiliary dreadnought loomed closer, unaware of what was coming. "Target their core," Adrian ordered. "Fire everything we have." The Valkyrie released its last barrage. The shots slammed into the dreadnought, drawing its attention just as the reactor reached critical mass. "Goodbye," Adrian whispered. The Valkyrie erupted in a blinding explosion, a nova of fire and fury. The auxiliary dreadnought, caught in the blast, shattered into burning debris. The enemy fleet recoiled, their lines broken. Without their flagship, they faltered. On Lunar Base Omega, the remaining human ships saw their chance. They charged, striking the confused auxiliary forces, pushing them back. Humanity had lost its greatest ship, but it had won something greater: hope, and in the ashes of the Valkyrie, the war was far from over. The darkness of deep space was silent, but not empty. Something ancient slumbered beneath the ruined surface of Mars' dead moon, Phobos. Forgotten by time, buried beneath layers of dust and rock, it had waited. Until now. The auxiliary invasion fleet loomed over Earth's last line of defense. The remnants of the human navy, outgunned, outnumbered, prepared for their final battle. Commander Elias Grant, aboard the HFY Sentinel, gritted his teeth as red warning lights flashed across the bridge. "They are charging weapons," Lieutenant Ako reported. Her voice was calm, but the tension in the air was thick. Grant exhaled sharply. "We can't hold them back." "Not like this." A sudden energy spike appeared on the monitors. A pulse from deep within Phobos. The readings were unlike anything the ship's sensors had ever detected. Then, a tremor shook space itself. From beneath the moon's surface, something moved. The rock split apart, revealing a colossal form hidden beneath. A warship? No, a titan. A construct from humanity's forgotten past. The Behemoth. A ship from a time when Earth had dreamed of conquest among the stars, before war and politics had buried its existence. The auxiliary fleet hesitated. This was not in their calculations. The Sentinel's crew could only watch in stunned silence as the ancient giant roared to life. "Is that one of ours?" Aiko whispered, awe in her voice. Grant's hands clenched into fists. "It is now." The Behemoth's engines ignited, and the dust of 1,000 years burned away as it rose. Its massive cannons, long thought dead, hummed with power. With no hesitation, it opened fire. A beam of pure energy sliced through the nearest XLR battleship, cutting it in half like paper. The enemy fleet scrambled, trying to reposition, but it was too late. The behemoth was awake. It moved with unnatural speed for its size, shields absorbing the first wave of return fire with ease. Then, its missile bays launched dozens of warheads streaking toward the XLR formations, detonating with deadly precision. On the Sentinel, cheers erupted. "We might actually win this," Echo breathed. The XLR, realizing the battle had turned against them, attempted to retreat. But the behemoth had other plans. It fired its main weapon, a gravitational implosion cannon. The air itself seemed to shudder as a black sphere formed in the middle of the enemy fleet. Then, it collapsed. Solari warships were ripped apart, crushed into nothingness by the sheer force. The survivors scattered, their once unbreakable invasion force now reduced to wreckage and despair. The battle was over. As the behemoth slowly turned toward Earth, Grant knew that everything had changed. Humanity had been on the brink of extinction, but now they had a weapon beyond anything the enemy had ever imagined. The war was no longer about survival. It was about victory. The war was over, or so the XLR believed. Humanity had been crushed, its fleets destroyed, its colonies wiped out. Earth itself lay in ruins, a smoldering shadow of what it once was. The XLR Empire celebrated, confident that they had erased the last human resistance. But in the void of space, hidden in the wreckage of dead ships and forgotten battlefields, something stirred. The Phantom was still alive. The last and most advanced warship of humanity had not fallen in battle. It had vanished, slipping through the chaos like a ghost. Designed for stealth and precision strikes, the Phantom had been Earth's secret weapon until the war turned hopeless. Now, it was the last hope. Deep in an asteroid field, Captain Damien Voss watched his screens. His crew was weary, their rations low, but their determination remained unbroken. "We have a target," his weapons officer, Sergeant Lin, announced. "A XLR command station near Jupiter. If we take it out, their entire supply chain collapses." Voss nodded. "Then we strike." The Phantom moved like a shadow, undetectable by conventional scanners. As it approached the XLR station, the crew prepared in silence. They had no reinforcements, no backup. If they failed, no one would remember their names. But if they succeeded, the war would begin anew. The station loomed ahead, a monstrous fortress of alien steel. Hundreds of enemy ships patrolled the perimeter. A direct attack was suicide. Voss smirked. "Good thing we don't do direct." With a flick of a switch, the Phantom activated its disruptor field. For 5 minutes, they would be completely invisible to enemy sensors. 5 minutes to do the impossible. The ship glided through the XLR defenses, slipping past battleships and patrols unnoticed. As they neared the station, Lin spoke. "Target locked. Fire." The Phantom unleashed hell. Explosions ripped through the command station's hull, shattering its defenses before the XLR could react. Alarms blared. Fighters scrambled. But the Phantom was already moving, weaving through the chaos with deadly precision. The XLR flagship, Vorik's Wrath, turned its cannons toward them. One direct hit would be the end. Voss grinned. "Let's see if they can hit a ghost." The Phantom vanished. Using its cloaking systems, it slipped behind the flagship. Before the XLR could adjust, it fired a single, perfectly placed torpedo into their reactor core. The flagship erupted in a fireball, the shockwave sending debris flying in all directions. Panic spread among the enemy forces. Without command, their fleet crumbled. Voss and his crew watched as the XLR ships turned and fled. The Phantom had struck back, and it was only the beginning.